Imagine this. The ocean is calm, the horizon stretches endlessly, and beneath the surface, a massive, steel beast prepares to dive, a state-of-the-art submarine, a vessel meant to represent the very future of naval warfare. Inside, 42 young men laugh, talk, and go about their duties, confident that the submarine beneath their feet is unbreakable, unsinkable. But within minutes, those same men will be fighting not the enemy, but the ocean itself. Their submarine, new, modern, and seemingly flawless, will become their coffin. This is not a story of war. This is not a tale of combat against Japan or Germany. This is the haunting story of USS Squalus, an American submarine that never saw battle, because it went down before the war even began. And yet, the events that unfolded in those chilling hours at the bottom of the Atlantic would go on to shape naval history forever. The year was 1939. The world was on the edge of chaos. Hitler had invaded Czechoslovakia, Mussolini was stretching his claws, and Japan was tightening its grip in Asia. Tension thickened like storm clouds, and America knew it would not remain untouched for long. The Navy was preparing, building ships, training men, and constructing submarines that could prowl silently beneath the seas. Among these vessels was the brand new USS Squalus, SS-192, the pride of the Portsmouth Navy Yard in New Hampshire. Commissioned in March of 1939, it was a state-of-the-art Sargo-class submarine, 310 feet long, weighing over 1,400 tons when surfaced. It carried torpedoes, machine guns, and everything needed for war. To the men assigned to her, Squalus wasn't just a machine, it was a symbol of progress, a promise of power. For the young sailors, many barely out of their teens, serving aboard her was both an honor and an adventure. They had trained relentlessly, learning to navigate the dark, claustrophobic passages, the endless valves and pipes, the humming engines, and the delicate systems that allowed this steel monster to breathe underwater. Life aboard a submarine was tight, sweaty, and dangerous. But there was pride. They knew they were part of something bigger, America's silent service. On the morning of May 23, 1939, USS Squalus was scheduled for yet another routine test dive. This was standard practice for new submarines. Dive after dive, the crew practiced submerging, resurfacing, testing every system until the boat was deemed battle-ready. To the men aboard, this was just another day. They were calm, confident, perhaps even a little bored. None of them could imagine that within minutes, their submarine would betray them. The boat left Portsmouth that morning, the crisp New England air carrying the sound of her engines as she pushed into the open sea. 42 men, including her captain, Lieutenant Oliver Nakeen, were aboard. Spirits were high. Some joked, some lit cigarettes, some leaned back in the bunks trying to rest. Outside, the sea was calm. No storm, no threat, just a blue horizon. At 7:30 a.m., Nakeen gave the order, dive. The submarine slipped beneath the waves, water rushing over the conning tower. Inside, red lights glowed faintly. The crew moved quickly, sealing hatches, adjusting valves, feeling the pressure of the ocean push down as the boat descended. Everything seemed normal. The depth gauge ticked downward. The hull groaned faintly, as steel always does under pressure. But then, something went wrong. Terribly wrong. In the control room, an officer noticed that the engine induction valve, a massive valve that keeps seawater from flooding into the submarine, had malfunctioned. It hadn't closed properly, and in that moment, with the boat under the surface, the ocean found its way inside. In an instant, thousands of gallons of freezing Atlantic seawater exploded into the aft compartments, smashing through machinery, drowning engines, and sweeping away everything in its path. Men screamed. Lights flickered. The submarine lurched violently. In compartment after compartment, chaos erupted. Water surged. Equipment sparked. Air hissed as pressure changed. Within moments, the aft engine rooms were completely flooded, killing men instantly. The crew scrambled to respond. Valves slammed shut. Bulkheads were sealed. Orders were shouted through the panic. In the control room, Nakeen fought to keep control, but the reality was undeniable. USS Squalus was sinking. The submarine came to rest on the ocean floor, 240 feet below the surface. Darkness swallowed her. The silence was broken only by the groans of strained steel and the terrified breaths of trapped men. In those first moments, more than 24 sailors were already gone, drowned in the aft compartments where the flood had struck mercilessly. The surviving men, 33 of them, were sealed inside the forward compartments, alive, but stranded in a tomb of steel. Imagine the horror. No sunlight, no fresh air, only the red glow of emergency lamps, the stench of oil and seawater, the tight, suffocating space of a submarine pressed by 100 tons of ocean above it. And the knowledge that rescue was far from certain. But far above, on the surface, the Navy already suspected something was wrong. The Squalus had gone under, but she hadn't come back up. Nearby, her sister submarine, USS Squalus, waited as part of the exercise. Hours passed, and still no sign of Squalus. A sickening dread spread across the crew of the Squalus. They knew something terrible had happened. The Navy scrambled into action. Rescue ships, divers, and the experimental diving bell were rushed toward the last known position. But time was running out. Every minute that passed meant less oxygen for the men trapped below. Inside the submarine, the survivors clung to hope. Captain Nakin moved among his men, keeping discipline, keeping calm. They rationed oxygen, stayed quiet, avoided panic. But each man knew what was at stake. If the rescue failed, they would suffocate in darkness, one by one. And yet, even as fear gripped them, a flicker of faith remained. For the Navy was bringing something new, something never before attempted on such a scale. A rescue chamber, an invention that might just save them. It would become one of the most daring, unprecedented rescues in naval history. The USS Squalus lay silent on the seabed, 240 feet down. Inside her forward compartments, 33 men clung to life. Above them was the crushing weight of the ocean, and beyond that, the faint hope that someone, anyone, might reach them before time ran out. The clock was ticking. Oxygen was limited. Every breath they took, every whispered word, every flicker of the emergency lights reminded them that death was closing in. Some men prayed quietly. Others stared into the shadows, lost in thoughts of families they might never see again. And their captain, Oliver Nakin, paced the narrow compartments, keeping his men calm, knowing panic would kill them faster than the sea. Meanwhile, on the surface, the alarm had spread like wildfire. The Navy mobilized instantly. Rescue vessels converged on the spot where the Squalus had disappeared. And at the heart of this effort was a remarkable invention, something that had never been used in such a dire, real-life situation, the McCann Rescue Chamber. The McCann Rescue Chamber was unlike anything seen before. It was a diving bell, shaped like a massive steel capsule, designed to lower itself down a cable, latch onto the hatch of a sunken submarine, and pull trapped men to safety. It was experimental, untested in real combat-like conditions. But now, it was the only hope. The man leading this daring mission was Lieutenant Commander Charles Swede Momsen, a submarine pioneer who had spent his life thinking of ways to save trapped submariners. For years, he had pushed the Navy to adopt life-saving devices, and the rescue chamber was his dream turned into reality. Now, that dream faced its ultimate test. The ocean was rough that day. Waves battered the surface ships. The exact position of the Squalus had to be found using buoys and cables dropped by the USS Squalus, her sister boat. Time seemed to slip away faster than the men below could afford. But finally, the chamber was lowered. Imagine the tension. On deck, sailors worked the winches with shaking hands. Divers plunged into the icy Atlantic, securing cables in place. Every eye was locked on the thick rope lowering the chamber into the dark water. And below, the trapped men listened, straining for any sound, any vibration that might signal salvation was near. At last, after agonizing hours, the rescue chamber found the submarine. Its steel frame clamped onto the forward escape hatch of the Squalus. For the men inside, it was a miracle. The hiss of machinery, the sound of bolts turning, it meant hope. The hatch opened. Fresh, blessed air rushed in. And one by one, the men climbed into the chamber. Imagine the relief, the trembling hands gripping the ladder, the pounding of their hearts as they left behind the tomb that had nearly claimed them. The first trip to the surface brought 7 survivors up. Then the chamber descended again. Another group was saved. And again. 4 times in total the chamber made the deadly journey, lifting men from the ocean floor to the light of day. Each trip was a gamble. If a cable snapped, if a seal failed, everyone inside would die. But somehow, against all odds, it worked. By the end of May 24, 33 men had been saved. They emerged, pale and shaken, from the depths. Some wept. Some simply collapsed on the deck. Others stood in stunned silence, gulping air as though it were the sweetest thing they had ever tasted. For them, it was rebirth. But 26 of their shipmates were not so fortunate. Those trapped in the flooded compartments had died instantly when the seawater rushed in. Their bodies remained entombed within the submarine, silent witnesses to the catastrophe. Still, the rescue was hailed as a miracle. Never before in history had so many men been saved from a sunken submarine at such depth. The McCann rescue chamber had proven itself. And the US Navy learned a lesson that would echo through the coming war. Submariners could be saved, and no man would be abandoned without a fight. Please subscribe my channel and support me more videos.